Welcome to our second video of the 20th and 21st century Britain. And in this video, we're going to examine World War One. So World War One was the first of two major wars that changed the way British society evolved and led to many changes in terms of social development. World War One itself, European-wise, was a 4-year-long war and had many events happening simultaneously. So for our purposes, we will be examining three aspects of that war: the entry to the war, one of the major battles in the Somme, and the end of the war and the Paris Peace Conference. So in 1914, that was the official declaration of war in the UK, but many things happened that led to entry into the war by the UK. So prior to 1914, before 1914, diplomatically, the relationship between Germany and Britain was declining. Germany was increasing its naval power, and Britain, as the #1 navy at the time, felt threatened by this. Remember, the Royal Navy was absolutely essential to the British Empire maintaining trade and its influence around the world. So European countries had agreed previously on multiple alliances that they would aid each other in the event of an attack on one country from another. So if one European country decided to attack another one, its alliances would come into place and all the countries would defend each other. So the reasons for the cause of World War One are complicated, but in general, most historians agree that two countries started the process. These two countries were Austria and Serbia. So Serbia they killed Franz Ferdinand, who was an Austrian duke, and then Austria declared war on Serbia. So this led to a set of events that eventually meant that many countries allied to both Serbia and Austria eventually declared war on each other. Britain itself didn't enter World War One until Germany attacked Belgium. So Belgium at the time was a neutral country. So after giving Germany a warning to stop the attack, which Germany did not, they declared war on Germany. So this was not the only reason, though. France was already fighting Germany, and the UK had an alliance with France as well. But more realistically, the UK did not want Germany to take control of Europe. When World War One was joined, Britain still had an empire. So, of course, this empire was also mobilized. And this meant soldiers from many countries joined World War One. Soldiers from Australia, Canada, India, Australia. So basically, any country still under direct control of Britain, like India, or self-governed, but still parts of the empire, like Australia or Canada, would join. So we'll look at the Battle of the Somme, and we're going to look at this battle specifically because it was an essential battle, as it highlighted many of the limitations of the soldiers that were fighting and in the places they were fighting in. So the Battle of the Somme took place in 1916, and it lasted around 5 months. It was located near the River Somme, and it featured the first use of a tank and the first time we had seen trench warfare in a major war. So trench warfare is where soldiers would sit and hide behind trenches, and they would slowly advance towards each other. It's a very defensive tactic, and very little land is taken by either sides. It is what is known as a war of attrition. A war of attrition means to slowly break down an enemy army over time and both sets were living in terrible conditions. Both sides in the battle, the Germans and the British, were inexperienced, and as trench warfare was new, many soldiers died because of poor decision making. Approximately 1 million soldiers were killed or wounded just over these 5 months alone. And the battle itself was highlighted as a waste of time and men, as really nothing had been gained. When the war was finally over with Germany and its allies, and they were defeated, the winners called forth a conference called the Paris Peace Conference. And this conference itself was perhaps the most influential meeting to have taken place, and it really has a direct impact on future events. So the Paris Peace Conference was convened to discuss the peace terms for Germany and its allies, and to change and rearrange the map to reflect the new status. So basically, any colonies previously owned by Germany were given to other countries, and Germany lost a lot of land in Europe and a lot of taxable industries. In total, Germany lost around 13% of its global territory. Germany was also made to agree to the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles is an infamous agreement that meant that Germany took 100% of the responsibility for the war and the loss of life and the loss of industry. And as such, Germany agreed to pay reparations to each country affected. So reparations are a form of payment, and they take the form of money. And this lasted for many years after the war. Germany was paying a lot of money to countries like France and the UK, and this effectively made their economy so weak that they could never really recover from it. If these terms seemed hard and seemed unreasonable, they were actually meant to. The peace conference was designed to punish Germany so severely that it would never have the power to attack another European country again. It was effectively a broken country, and the European powers would keep it that way for the foreseeable future, or until the European countries could trust the German leaders again. A final aspect to the peace conference was the formation of the League of Nations. The League of Nations was an agency that was formed to prevent any major war from breaking out again. It was a multi-country agency, and it was designed to help talk through a peaceful dispute rather than declaring war. The First World War was seen afterwards as quite rightly one of the most terrible things to have happened to Europe and the UK. The loss of millions of men was seen as a failure of civilization, a failure of diplomacy, and really it took many years for the UK to recover economically. During this time, the UK had economic aid from the USA to help rebuild the industries that were affected and devastated by the war, and it also increased migration from its colonies to help replace the men who had died. Ironically, the First World War was known as the war to end wars, as many believed that there could not be as terrible or far-reaching a war to match World War I.